Hey, what's up, y'all? This is The Alien Annihilators, Chapter 16, Rachel's Dad. Cleo waited in front of Jeff's house. Kenneth had went back in, claiming to have forgotten something. Eventually he came out the front door and stood next to Cleo. Hey, Cleo said. What did you forget? I forgot to sneak that book out of there so we can have a proper read through it. What? But it's not. Cleo, relax. This book could teach us more about the alien annihilators. Certainly more than just their location and where they were established. We're just borrowing it, is all. Cleo decided to let it go. She knew the world was at stake, and if this book had the slightest chance of saving it, then maybe it was worth borrowing. Okay, fine. But do you know we have about zero chance of making it to that island, right? Cleo asked. But the aliens are still a threat, and if Selena does find a way to escape that temple and resurrect her master, then the Gauntlet of Light will be our only hope of destroying him and his servants. Cleo sighed in defeat. He was right, and the longer they wasted time, the longer Selena would have to escape that temple. So you're in, right? We're in this together, and we will find a way onto that island. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have much choice. If only there was someone who... Wait, Cleo thought. There was someone. What were you saying, Cleo? We need someone who is an expert at navigating the sea, getting us through waves, right? Cleo asked, and Kenneth nodded. Well, I might have just the guy we need. The guy Cleo had in mind was Rachel's dad, Calvin. He had worked in the National Army for years, but he was more like a spy. Cleo remembered a news report she'd seen a few years back. Calvin had maneuvered through 10 kilometers of open sea on a stormy night on nothing but a motorboat just to gather intel on the opposing forces' movements on a neighboring country. You're sure about this guy? Kenneth asked as they approached the front door. Pretty sure, Cleo said, and knocked on the door. It was Rachel who answered it. Oh, Cleo, Kenneth, I thought I said I wasn't. We're not here to convince you aliens exist. We're here because we need your father's boating skills, or something, Kenneth said. My father, sorry, he just left. When will he be back? For a covert operation in the army. He'll be gone for 3 weeks. Are you serious? We need him now, Kenneth exclaimed. Too bad, geez, it can't be that important, Rachel said, shaking her head in annoyance. Rachel's eyes went wide suddenly, staring at something behind them. Cleo turned around just in time to see a fireball rushing right towards them. Chapter 17, The Getaway. Cleo dived into the doorway, bringing Rachel with her in the process. Kenneth was right behind her, quickly shutting and locking the door once he was through. A second later the fireball hit. They could feel the heat of it from under the door. What the hell was... Rachel began. Rachel, something's after us, something dangerous. We need to get out of here. Get the keys to your car and hook the trailer to it, the one with the yacht. Rachel nodded and ran upstairs. Meanwhile, Cleo and Kenneth grabbed some hand mirrors from the bathroom. They might come in handy. They heard screaming coming from the living room, and when Cleo ran out, she saw Rachel, an alien, and a broken window the alien had broken in. Cleo knew what was coming next and threw the hand mirror, just in time to reflect the green light the alien sent Rachel's way. The light was sent to the alien's feet, creating a small explosion and causing it to fall down, stunned. Cleo remembered how a person could be killed instantly by the green light if the alien wished, like how Selena had threatened to kill Kenneth. I probably saved her life. Thank God. Rachel ran out of there, and they all went into the garage. Rachel immediately clicked the button to open the garage. Get in and start the car. Me and Kenneth will get the trailer hooked, Cleo yelled. While Rachel did as she was told, Cleo and Kenneth ran to the trailer with the yacht in it. They hooked the metal end to Rachel's car, tightened it, and immediately hopped in the back seat. Rachel stepped on the gas and they barreled through the driveway. Just as they cleared the garage door, a large thud sounded from the back of the car. Cleo immediately knew what had just happened. She grabbed the hand mirror from Kenneth and pointed it towards the back windshield. A brilliant green light was shot into it a second later and sent back to where it came from, the alien, who had just hopped onto their car from the roof of the house. The alien screeched in pain, falling off the car and onto the road. Cleo and Kenneth watched the alien lift itself up, screaming in anger as the car screeched away. Rachel had to be driving well over the speed limit, but the beach Cleo had told her to drive to wasn't far away. We need to get that yacht into the water so we can go to Jagged Rock Isle. And with that alien still on our trail, we have to hurry, Cleo had yelled. The road sloped downwards onto the beach so people could bring their vehicles onto the sand. It made it convenient for the fishermen and leisure boaters to get their boats to the waterline. But since Rachel was driving so fast, they hit the sand rather hard, sending sand grains all over the windshield. Rachel turned the wipers on full blast. Once the sand was out of the way, Rachel screamed and slammed on the brakes. They were about to drive into the water. Once the car was stopped, Cleo and Kenneth stepped out and ran to the trailer. They unhooked it from the car, spun it around, and pushed it to the waterline so the yacht was facing the water. Right when they managed to drag the yacht into the water and climb in, Rachel included, a fireball was flung their way. It hit Rachel's car and the thing caught fire immediately. "Oh crap," Kenneth exclaimed. "The bloody thing is gonna explode any second." Rachel hit the Kenneth was flung onto the ground from the abrupt departure of the boat, but then the explosion struck. Rachel, Chapter 18, Rachel's Decision. Cleo had felt nothing but relief for the last 30 minutes. Yes, the explosion had struck quite close to them, and yes, she had been quite scared, but because Rachel had been so quick to react to Kenneth's warning, they had shot forward like a jet ski, just escaping the explosion radius. "Okay, Rachel, I think we've lost the alien. You can slow down a bit," Cleo said now. There were 2 seats to the right of the driver's seat. Cleo was on the seat closest to the driver's seat, and Kenneth was beside her. Rachel was obviously seated in the driver's seat. She loosened her foot on the gas. "Was that Selena?" Rachel demanded. "Did you piss her off and send her to my house?" Cleo ignored her and spoke to Kenneth. "That can't have been Selena, can it? She's locked away at that temple in the planet far away. I don't know what's going on, not exactly, but I do know one thing. The aliens are after us. They know we're fighting against them, and they'll stop at nothing." "They know we're fighting against them? How can that be? The only alien who knows this is—" Then an idea struck Cleo, and she groaned. "Selena. She knows about our plan to stop her from resurrecting her master. I bet you anything she sent that alien after us. Maybe told it where they might find us. But how exactly do you think?" "Hello," Rachel yelled. "I just saved both your butts from that alien, so I think I deserve to know what's going on." Cleo looked at Kenneth, a question in her eyes. "Should we tell her?" They seemed to say. "Yes," he whispered in answer. "How much?" she whispered back. Kenneth paused, considering for a moment, then said, "Everything." For the next 20 minutes the boat's engine had been turned off. Now that they were well away from the shore, they were surely safe from the alien who'd chased them. They had just wrapped up telling to Rachel about pretty much everything that had happened since she'd left them at Kenneth's house. This is why it's important we get to Jagged Rock Isle. It is the last known location of the Gauntlet of Light, and we need you to get us to it. Okay, Rachel said. She had a map on her lap. She held it up for them to look, for them all to look. So where is it? I don't see any Jagged Rock Isle. Kenneth grabbed the map, searching it intently. After a minute, he said, well, since it's not labeled on this map, I think our best option is to go to that cluster of small islands out to the northeast. Kenneth pointed out where he was talking about. Until we find. Rachel laughed mockingly. Finding the right island is the least of our worries, don't you know? Yes, Cleo said. We do know the dangers in going there. Unnatural weather events like tidal waves and frequent lightning. But we're determined to stop Selena and her master plan, and we need your steering skills if we ever stand a chance of maneuvering through those waves. Will you think about it? Rachel did not appear cool with it at all, but said, I'll give it some thought. Cleo and Kenneth had decided they were going to give Rachel 24 hours to make the decision of whether or not she was going to captain the boat. Between the three of them, Rachel was the one most likely to get them through those waves by far. However, if tomorrow she decided not to assist them, they would go back to shore, drop her off, and go to Jagged Rock Isle without her. After making all these decisions together, they decided to disembark on a nearby island and spent the night there. Rachel had a big decision to make tomorrow, and they really had nowhere else to go in the meantime. They were all seated around a campfire, and Kenneth had out the book he'd stolen from Jeff earlier that day. He was reading it silently. Cleo felt Kenneth nudge her shoulder, getting her attention. He then held the book out in front of them. There's a word written here, stilioso. What's that supposed to mean? Kenneth asked. Cleo shrugged. In the book, there's a sentence that reads, the waters of Jagged Rock Isle are nearly impossible to pass through. Then an arrow was written after the sentence, and they wrote the word stilioso. What could it mean? No idea. It could mean anything. I think you're looking into this a little too much, don't you think? Maybe, Kenneth said, but he could have sworn this had to be something important. Chapter 19, The Spell. It was the next morning, and Cleo and company had just finished breakfast, just some beef jerky from Kenneth's backpack. Once the sleeping bags were all rolled up and put in the yacht, Cleo knew Rachel had a decision to make before they hopped aboard, whether or not to drive them. I thought about what you said, Cleo, about how the Gauntlet of Light has the power to put an end to the aliens. And I'm in. And soon Rachel was in Cleo's embrace. She was so happy to hear it. Moments later they were on the boat. Kenneth had the map and had pointed them in the direction of the cluster of islands. The ones to the northeast should be a 12-hour drive. Just thought I should tell you now. It's fine, Rachel said back. I'm more worried about what awaits us at our destination anyways. It was 8 p.m. in the evening. They had been driving for just under 12 hours by now. Look, Rachel said now, indicating the fuel gauge. It was on empty. I reckon we have just 10 minutes before we're out. We're gonna make it there. Just trust, Cleo started. There's just a slight problem we have to deal with first, before we worry about fuel, Kenneth said. What problem is that? Cleo asked. It's far away right now, and not very big, but it's getting bigger and coming at us fast, Kenneth said, pointing slightly to the east. Cleo strained her eyes. It was dark out, and the water looked almost pitch black from a distance, but she could make out a huge wave. It could have been the size of a 5-story building. She started to panic. I thought you said it's not very big, Cleo said, afraid. That wave will double in size before it even reaches us. Rachel, we need to go to the northwest. That's the only chance we have of avoiding it. Rachel did as she was told, but the wave was approaching fast, unnaturally fast. It was going to be close. Rachel knew this and stepped on the gas, and for a moment it actually looked like they were going to clear the wave, until the wave suddenly doubled in length, surprising everyone. They were now headed straight for it. It was almost on them. So this is what the book meant when it said it was nigh on impossible to get to the island. Kenneth yelled over the storm. Did you see that wave? It just appeared out of nowhere. An idea struck Cleo like one of the thunderclaps in the sky. No, Kenneth, it's not nigh on possible. No, Kenneth, it's not nigh on impossible. It is impossible. That's reassuring, Kenneth said sarcastically. Don't you get it? That word that was written on the book. It must be some kind of spell or something, and it's the reason that getting to the island isn't impossible. Kenneth was dumbstruck for a moment, trying to process what she was saying. The waves were just about upon them, when Cleo drew in a deep breath and screamed, Stilioso! Immediately upon saying it, the waves began to swiftly shrink until it was half its size, but it was still large and approaching fast. Once Rachel knew there was no hope of escaping it, she turned the bow of the ship right towards it, and before they knew it, they were right on top of the wave. Rachel knew they must be at a quite dizzying height by now. If the boat fell off, it would be destroyed, and they'd never make it to the island alive. But the effects of Cleo's spell were still in place, so the waves slowly shrank until they were safely at water level. Chapter 20. The Footprint. They landed on the island nearest to them. With the gas as low as it was, they couldn't afford to do otherwise. Besides, Cleo had said, we don't know which island is the right one, so we may as well dock the ship here and search this one first. When their hull hit the sand, Cleo and Kenneth hopped off and pulled the boat out of the water onto the sand. Once Rachel hopped off, they took a good look at their surroundings. The sand they stood on sloped upwards, and at the top, the landscape transitioned into rainforest, dense with trees, plants, and foliage. So what do you think we're looking for? Rachel asked. This is the sort of place I'd expect to find mud huts and tree houses, not alien research labs. Kenneth had his book out and was studying it. Their base of operations is located underground. A puzzle at the heart of the island is the only known way of getting there. Solve the puzzle, and the pathway opens. The heart of the island. This is a large island, and that description doesn't exactly narrow down where exactly we should be looking, Rachel said, tired and annoyed. We'll just walk until we're in the general area of the middle of the island. Search for anything unusual about the environment, 'cause that's probably where we'll find whatever puzzle the book's talking about, Cleo said, leading the way into the forest. They had been walking for a long time now, and if it hadn't been dark in the forest before, it was now. So in the next clearing they found, they set up camp. Cleo and Rachel quickly got a fire started, and Kenneth brought out some ramen noodles in a pot. Kenneth had water in his backpack, but he didn't want to use it if there were other options. I saw a small river a little ways back. I'll use that for the ramen noodles, if you're okay with that, Kenneth said, addressing the girls. Once he had their okay, he set off back where they'd come from, flashlight in hand. The tree foliage limited moonlight into the forest, so Kenneth was thankful he'd brought it. Once he found the river they'd passed earlier that night, he grabbed out a spare empty water container from his bag and filled it up with water. Putting the container on the ground, he shone his light on it, trying to decide if the water was clean enough for them to use. Once he was satisfied, he began to lift the torch. Wait, he thought. What was that on the ground? It kind of looked like. He shone his flashlight back on the ground and saw it. Footprints, big ones. He grabbed out his camera and took a picture of it. What animal could this be? He thought to himself. Once Kenneth had gotten the water back to camp, he put 3 ramen noodle packets into his pot and the water and let it sit in the fire for about 5-10 minutes. Now each of them had a bowl of noodles and had just finished eating. They now sat around the fire thinking about the next day. Later, once their sleeping bags were all set, Kenneth grabbed out his camera and took a better look at that footprint he'd captured. They really were big, ginormous even. Cleo, Kenneth said quietly. She was laying down not far from him and sat up when she heard him. You don't think there might be, I don't know, dangerous animals in here, do you? Why? Did you see anything in the woods earlier? Cleo asked, concerned. She saw the camera he was holding and quickly snatched it from him. Oh my gosh, she said quietly once she saw the screen. Are those gorilla prints? But how are they so big? I don't know. But if there is a huge gorilla in these woods, then we'd best watch our backs. What chance do we stand of surviving an attack if this thing is hostile? The thought gave Cleo goosebumps. A potentially dangerous predator lives in these woods, and yet we're waiting for broad daylight to continue our journey. But she didn't complain further. She just gave the camera back to Kenneth and laid her head back down on her pillow. So in the next video, they're going to be going through Jagged Rock Isle, and they're going to be on the watch for this gorilla. So make sure that y'all tune in to the next video. Remember to subscribe and comment if you want me to keep continuing this series. And goodbye.